Let's get started. So here I found a zipper and it was too long, so I cut it the length that I needed and I added a little heart stopper at the end. You could do any kind of decorative tab to put at the end of your zipper. You don't have to get an actual stopper. It's not necessary. You can cut your zipper whatever length you want it and add your own flare. Next, I'm just turning the edges at the beginning of the zipper. And again, I just cut this piece of zipper on my own and I wanted to use it. So I just turn the edges that are going to be stitched on instead of adding extra metal. And then I'm just putting the double stick tape starting about a 1/2 inch away from the edge and going about 2/3 of the way across. And that's where I'm going to start fading my zipper out of the seam. And you'll notice I'm putting the zipper with the good side of the zipper or outside of the zipper, so it's facing the good side of the outside of my bag. So all the good sides are facing each other. And then I'm going to take the lining and do the same thing. So this time I'll put the tape all the way across, minus the 1/2 inch on either side. And I'll go ahead and stick that into place and secure it with some binder clips. And then I'll be ready to start stitching. Here you'll notice I'm putting a binder clip right where my zipper is going to fade out of the seam. I just want to make sure that I know when I'm stopping and starting. So I just mark it. If you are using fabric, you can use straight pins, but since I am using leather, I'm using the binder clips. And one quick note, you might have noticed I changed the foot on my machine. So now I've changed it back to the Teflon foot and I'm sewing it at 1/4 inch from the edge. And I'm beginning to sew a 1/2 inch from the end, from either side. It'll be a 1/2 inch beginning and a 1/2 inch stopping from both sides. All right, so you have half done. Although you may want to do this one more step. You could leave it like this and not top stitch it. However, if you've ever had your jacket caught in your zipper before, you may want to do this, and that's top stitching the materials. So what I'm going to do is, again, using the double face tape, I'm going to turn the materials over using that stitch line as my straight edge. So there you'll see the double stick tape, and I'll turn the leather, pushing it nice and tight so you get a nice straight edge, and then I'll do the same thing with the lining. When you're ready to top stitch, you want to start sewing a 1/2 inch from the edge or side and end it a 1/2 inch from the side. All right, one side is done. Now for the other side. You'll do the same exact thing again. Just make sure when you're putting it together that you line up the other side so that the zipper is in the same exact location. Otherwise your bag will end up being a little wonky or off center. Now that both sides are sewn to the zipper, you will now stitch the lining pieces together and the outside pieces together. And then in the corners at the top where they meet, if you turn the outside material onto itself, so like a turned edge, and then overlap the lining material over the top, this will give you a nice clean sewn edge. So once again, you're going to fold or turn over the outside material, so it'll be turned 1/4 inch onto itself, and then wrap the lining material over the top and the lining does not have a turned edge. It's just going to go right over the top. Here you can see I've pinned together my lining pieces, and I'm going to start with my lining because my Teflon foot was already there. I'm not starting at the top, I'm actually starting at the bottom, and I'm back tacking and leaving about a 4-inch hole at the bottom of my bag. And again, this is the lining. I'm leaving a 4-inch hole that's not going to be stitched at the bottom of my bag because that's what I'm going to flip the whole bag through. And the lining gets sewn at 3/8 of an inch. So it's sewn a little bit smaller. Remember, the outside seam allowance is 1/4 inch. The lining is 3/8. And it's going to get a little bit thick and a little bit tricky when you're going to sew over all 4 materials, the 2 linings and 2 outsides. But as you can see here, I just sewed right across that edge, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the other side of the lining. All right, you're done sewing the lining, and as you can see here, I have a hole at the bottom of the lining. Again, that's where I'm going to flip the whole bag through, and don't worry, that will get stitched closed. Now I'm going to go ahead and switch my feet back to my welting foot. If you did not put piping on this bag, you could just sew all the way around using your Teflon foot, and you wouldn't have to stop and start again like I am. So now I'm just sewing the two pieces together and feeling with my hand where the piping is, because I want to, and I'm sorry, I keep using welting and piping interchangeably. They're the same word, or they mean the same thing in this case. And so I'm just feeling with my fingers to make sure I get really, really, really close to the piping. So when I flip it open, I want to make sure that the piping is sewn very close into the seam, and it'll be nice and clean. Woohoo! You're almost done. Okay, remember that hole at the bottom of the lining? Well, now you're going to flip all of your material. The whole bag is going to go flip through that hole. Hopefully you used a better lining material than I did, because this one is a very stiff woven but very cute leopard print. So once you get your outside on the outside, I like to just stick my hand in there and really push the corners out to make sure they're nice and taut. Everything is nice and flat and going in the right directions. There aren't any dents. And once you finish doing that, you can go ahead and stitch up that hole. So to stitch up the hole at the bottom of the bag, you can use either the welting foot or zipper foot, I guess is the other name. You just want to make sure the hole is on the opposite side, could be because you want to get as close to the edge as possible. You can also use your Teflon foot if you don't have that zipper foot. Just make sure, again, that you catch everything, you're close to the edge, and there are no more holes left in your bag. And finally, the zip case is done. Now you can shove the lining inside the bag where it belongs, get it nice and straightened out, and once you do, you can zip that up and you can start using it. Happy sewing!